Gird your loins.
You're saying that to us.
Yeah. I've always thought that was a really cool thing that you could do, you know, with your skirt. You just pull it up, tie it around, loins girded.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't do that in a kimono though.
No, they just fly open.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Erica.
I'm Charlotte.
I'm Erica a la mode on Instagram.
I'm Evil Queen Charlotte on Instagram.
And we're here today to talk about traditional Japanese fashion, and we're going to run through a whole bunch of different types of Japanese clothing.
But disclaimer, we aren't professional kimono students of any kinds. Everything that we have researched for this has been from reliable sources on the internet and what limited books that we have and can read.
Yeah, you can get certified as a kimono expert in Japan taking classes. We are not certified kimono experts. A lot of this we've just learned either from our families or from research, and we just thought we would share some information with you guys.
For this, we'll be kind of going through the history as well as talking about specific garments. We're not going to get into like accessories and stuff.
So we're going to kind of go sequentially because the kimono developed over time, as with, you know, Western historical garments and stuff. Our modern clothing today has developed out of traditional clothing. So we're going to give you guys like a brief overview of like prior Japanese clothing and how kimono that we know today evolved out of that. Prior to the modern kimono, Japanese clothing was heavily influenced by Tang Dynasty court dress. And there were various trends in Hanfu that disseminated from China to Japan. At the time, the Japanese court sent a lot of emissaries and envoys to China, bringing back all sorts of cultural imports, including Hanfu, which was widely adopted in Japanese court society and then trickled down throughout the rest of Japanese society as well. And this carried on through the Yamato period and the Nara period, during which time men and women often wore outfits composed of separates, including like a double-breasted blouse or tunic worn with a skirt or trousers. Latter Yamato dress, also known as the Asuka period, had super fun like Tang Dynasty Hanfu skirts that looked very stripedy, like circus tents, and I love them. They were called mo in Japan. You wore them with like a tunic over top. They also started wearing hakama, which were like evolved from Chinese fashions.
There's a skirt version and then a trouser version. So they're essentially the like pleated look of like wide-legged. It's the same sort of design of like pleated fabric with a waistband, but one has fabric that will go between your legs, so it's common to wear it during horse riding because your legs wouldn't chafe. And then there is a skirt version called the andan, and then the trouser version is the umanori.
After the Yamato period, you get the Nara period, which is the last time when Japanese people could really get dressed easily in like a couple minutes. So during the Nara period, men wore ho, which were loose mandarin-colored coats with hakama trousers, and women wore these uaginu, double-breasted blouses, and haishi brocade vests over like a mo skirt. And those were super simple to get into and stuff. And then we hit the Heian period, where Japanese fashion as we know it really began to develop, and also dressing time started taking longer and longer. So during the Heian period, Japan stopped sending envoys to China, and thus cultural imports, including fashion trends and clothing, slowed dramatically, allowing for unique Japanese fashion to really develop on its own without a lot of Chinese influence. Some elements of Chinese traditional dress remained, like the wrap front robe that would evolve into the modern kimono, and some of them were discarded. At this time, we see Japanese fashion introducing the straight line cut patterning method for clothing. So instead of making curved garments like curved sleeves, curved necklines, a lot of patterns were cut using very geometric straight line shapes. This reduced fabric waste a lot when you create straight line garments as opposed to shaped patterns, and you didn't have to tailor garments to your individual wearer's body shape, so it made the kimono super flexible and very efficient. Like, kimono of this style could also be layered in winter for warmth, and then you could use like super lightweight ones without a lining in linen or cotton that could be worn in summer, so it would be much more lightweight. The convenience of kimono made it a huge staple in Japanese society, and so it became vastly popular for all different classes. At this time, nobility also adopted an extremely impractical court dress that I adore, but it's called the jūnihitoe, and it covered the hands and the feet. Because mobility, who is she? We don't know her.
Well, if you're in the court, you don't really need to move much.
Yeah, it was
you just
really
need to look fabulous.
Oh yeah, part of the whole status thing. They showed their wealth and status by being like, we don't have to move, we don't have to lift things, people will do it for us. So the jūnihitoe literally translates to 12 layers. The actual number of layers varied based on the outfit. It was the formal court dress introduced during the Heian period, and it was a lot of like layered kimono robes stacked on top of each other, and each subsequent robe was cut wider and thinner than the previous layers so that each individual layer could be seen when the whole ensemble was worn. And then the kosode that we know nowadays, that the kosode became the primary form of dress in the Edo period, but it originated at this time as a form of underwear for the jūnihitoe, and it was the layer essentially worn against the skin to protect all of the other layers from like sweat and body oils and gross human fleshy bits.
I had to say fleshy bits.
Yeah. Anyway, the kosode is a small-sleeved kimono. At the time, it was often worn with hakama pants. Later, as the hakama fell out of fashion, you would see the development of the obi that we see nowadays on kimono that hold the garment in place, because the obi was introduced as an alternative to hakama in order to hold the wrap front robe closed.
Also during this time period, the yukata came about. It originated as a garment that you would wear leaving the bathhouse. So traditionally, back then, they would not bathe at home. They would go to a communal bathhouse, and then when they were leaving to head home, they would wear either a cotton or linen yukata. And that started during the Heian period. So like the hakama, the yukata will also kind of pop up again throughout this talk as it evolves throughout history, because it is now a commonly worn garment during summertime because it is lightweight and good for the hot, humid summers of Japan.
Mm-hmm. They're also popular in Japanese communities around the world, like in the Hawaiian Japanese community, just because it's very hot and humid there. And so like if we get dressed up for like the Obon festival, everybody's usually in yukata, because you don't want to ruin your nice silks by sweating through them like a sweaty, sweaty human.
Wow, that got personal.
Yeah.
So the Kamakura period, nothing really significant happened in terms of changing of the clothing.
Yeah, throughout the Kamakura period, the kosode and hakama were often worn together as a form of like daily dress and stuff, especially among the working class.
Yeah.
The two were often worn together, and kosode were not, at this point, were not worn without hakama. So the hakama, when it was tied over your kosode, would fasten your kimono in place. So we still don't have obis yet. There were also like fancy hakama that could be worn that were super, super long and would trail over your feet and had like trailing waist ties and stuff. And they were very fancy, and also a status symbol because they were very impractical.
Still impractical, but still worn today by kabuki dancers. Which brings us to the Sengoku period, which again, not much really happens during this period except for the hilarity of the hakama pants and what happens with them. During this time, obviously, there's a huge influx of European trade and travel. So specifically, they get a lot of Spanish and Portuguese over in Japan, and they come with their nice breeches You know the ones, the puffy ones you see in Shakespearean plays all the time.
The knee-length ones.
The knee-length ones.
And we didn't have knee-length pants at the time.
No, but the Japanese really liked these Portuguese breeches and they wanted to fit in. So they created the hakama shorts, aka the karusan, which sounds like calzone, which is the Spanish word for breeches.
It was a travesty for you, for me, for them, for the pants.
I find it hilarious. Despite that, hakama shorts are still a thing today, except they don't have the tie. They don't do the puff. They're just wide-legged shorts. I enjoy that visual.
It's like a skirt.
Yeah, but they're shorts.
It's surprise pants.
Yeah, surprise shorts.
Surprise shorts.
Yeah.
Because you look like you're wearing a skirt, and then whoosh, pants.
Yeah.
Shorts.
Shorts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Legs.
Okay.
Yeah. During the latter part of the Sengoku period is really when we start to see the kosure become the primary form of outer dress for a lot of different classes and stuff, rather than just the working class too.
Moving on to the Edo period, which this is the period where it has the most change in the fashion.
The modern kimono really evolved the most in the Edo period. And then we start seeing more stylistic variations on the kosure, including the furisore, the tomesore, the homongi and stuff. And so we will break all of those down for you. The first type of variation on kosore that you'll see is the furisore, meaning long swinging sleeves. So kosore had short sleeves like these guys, much more practical for everyday wear, for working and stuff. But the furisore have these super long, billowy, butterfly-like sleeves that I love. And they come in all different lengths based on the formality of the garment. But these were often worn by young women. My grandma always said that it was to signify you're open for marriage.
I think it's just more eye-catching.
Yeah.
Because the longer the sleeve, the more formal it is.
Yeah.
And if it's long and brightly colored,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, I'm available.
Yeah, and my grandma always said young women should wear bright colors to show the men you're on the market. And then as you get older, you wear the
More tones.
yeah, more darker colors and stuff. So this furisore in particular is called a hikizuri. Hikizuri meaning trailing skirt. Hikizuri have this long puddled train that drags behind you. A lot of kimono are folded up so that the hem is at your ankles, but this one in particular is worn long. And it's very elegant, very graceful, very formal, not very practical. So most commonly today you'll see it either at Japanese weddings or when geishas perform. You can identify it by the long trailing hem that will usually have slight padding along it to help protect the hem as it drags along the ground, and these super long, very fancy sleeves that are like about 110, 120 centimeters long. Very formal. You won't see them super often, but they're gorgeous and I love them. Mm-hmm. And they're usually made of very heavily embellished fabrics, very elaborate brocades to show how fancy you are.
So the next kind of furisore is the chu furisore, and this is an example of one. It has not quite as long of sleeves as the o furisore or the hikizuri, but it has pretty lengthy sleeves as is, so really get some swing out of them.
Yeah, like 90 to 100 centimeters.
Yeah.
Very fun to swing.
Still very flappable.
Mm-hmm. Very butterfly.
Exactly. So this is something that would be worn by unmarried guests at weddings. So, still trying to catch that man with your brightly colored chu furisore and the big sleeves. It's also worn at coming of age ceremonies, which that is something that happens when you turn 20. You kind of get dressed up in traditional wear and you take pictures, and it's a huge ceremony with all the other people your age that happens once at the beginning of the year. So if that previous year you turned 20, you get to be part of this celebration and you get dressed really fancy and nice, and it's a lot of fun. And then you take pictures, you hang out, and you go eat a lot of food. But so that's the chu furisore. It's you know, still for formal occasions, but not the most formal. And because the sleeves are still so very long, it's not practical for much of anything else besides just standing there looking nice and taking pictures.
Yeah, it can be a little cumbersome when you have all those sleeves, but they're very long, which means you can snare a man around the ankles and reel him in, and then you have a prisoner.
Thank you, Pasa.
There is a version of this furisode with even shorter sleeves, like 80-ish centimeters. Still flappable, still fun, just not as long as this. So it's slightly more practical.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's called the ko furisode. And it's worn usually with hakama, coming back again, during graduation ceremonies.
The magic pants that just keep on giving.
Sure.
Yes.
Surprise pants.
Yeah.
One, because they don't look like pants, and two, because they keep coming back. So,
yes.
You know. Another variation on the kosode is the tomesode, and there are two types of tomesode. There's the kuro tomesode, which kuro means black, so ta-da.
Ta-da!
And then there's the iro tomesode, which is literally any other color aside from kuro. And something to note about those is that they have something what is called the eba moyo, which is a type of design that's placed usually trailing on the hem of the kimono, and it doesn't regard seams at all. It kind of goes across the seams seamlessly, so it looks like one continuous design, and it's really pretty on a lot of different kimonos.
So tomesode can be differentiated based on their formality, based on the number of mon or family crests that you'll see on them. A lot of different Japanese families had crests, particularly the samurai families, and then more towards like the Meiji period, I think, is when like other families started adopting their own family crests. But a lot of mon are in some way printed or embellished onto various kimono, including the tomesode like this. So the kuro tomesode is a very formal kimono worn by married women. It could also be worn for weddings, at which point it would have a full sleeve, like a full furisode sleeve, and then brides would wear this to get married, and it has their family crests on it and everything. And then after they get married, the lower portion of the sleeve is chopped off and it's turned into a kuro tomesode that they can wear as married women. And so the crests are embellished onto the kimono in 5 places. There's one on each side of the breast, there is one on the back of the sleeve, and then there's one on the center back neckline. So 5 crests is the most formal, 3 crests is like semi-formal, and then 1 crest is the most casual of the tomesode. So it's super fancy, and as a kuro tomesode, this could have been worn as a wedding kimono or perhaps as like a formal kimono for married women to like attend fancy occasions.
So this is an example of the iro tomesode because it is very colored, very, very colored.
It makes me happy when Charlotte wears this one because then I always think, martini olives.
Really, really does. So this is something that could be worn by married or unmarried women. And again, the formality depends on its number of crests. This one does have all 5 crests, so it's a very formal iro tomesode.
This is an example of the 3rd variation that we see on the kosode. This one is called homongi, and it's identified by this continuous eba moya pattern that you see along the hem and along the sleeves and shoulders of the kimono. These patterns are typically made actually after the garment is assembled, so the cloth will be sewn together and then the patterns will be drawn onto it and then either painted or embroidered and then embellished to help that continuous look of the pattern across the seams. These are semi-formal, and so they're a little more casual, but they're still very elegant and can still be worn to like formal occasions and stuff. Homongi like this would be worn as like a visiting gown sort of thing. So if I were to pay a jaunty visit to Charlotte's house, I would typically wear a homongi like this, where you want to pay respect to your host. So you dress formally, but you're also not like going to a wedding, so you don't need the killer sleeves for the man catching, because the only thing I'm trying to catch at your house is Tic Tac. A cat, not an actual Tic Tac.
Yeah.
there aren't just loose Tic Tacs on the floor or something.
So you'll be wearing this the next time you come over, right?
And try to scoop Tic Tac into it.
Because it would be a special occasion because you never come to my house. I always come here.
I know, I just don't like leaving my house. I'm kind of a hermit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Colors and patterns are also very important on the hwamongi, and they are very specific based on events, based on like seasons and stuff, and so there are very specific color palettes and motifs that you're supposed to wear at specific times.
So the final variation on the kosore is the most commonly seen version of it, which is called the komon, and it is the casual everyday kimono that people would wear just every day. They're not going to a formal event, they're not visiting anybody that they need to impress, they're just going about their lives. So the komon has a repeating pattern across the whole thing, which makes it kind of easier to produce that fabric, so it's a more inexpensive fabric, and that is why it's used for everyday wear. And it has shorter sleeves so that they don't just get in everything. They still have sleeves, and there are ways to, you know, tie them back if you're doing cleaning or anything like that. But for the most part, the everyday Japanese woman that's wearing kimono gets used to the sleeves. It's still made out of like a nice fabric, so this is still silk. It's not cotton, but you can wear cotton kimono. There are some cotton kimono that's not yukata, but it is still appropriate to wear like a nice silk komon around your house.
It's like a dressing gown, like a tea gown kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's still gorgeous, elaborate, elegant, but it is a more casual kind of garment that you would wear around your own home for comfort and practicality. And this one's super cool because it was passed down in Charlotte's family, and my family doesn't have any heirloom kimono, so I think that's awesome.
Oh, one cool feature about this is that it has a snap on the collar. So when you wear the kimono, you're supposed to fold the collar in, and they usually don't have snaps, but the snap kind of helps keep it folded, which I think is neat. So, and we're back to the yukata. See how it shows up again?
The pop-up yukata.
Yeah. So originally it was just something you would wear after coming out of the bath, and now it is becoming more of a popular street wear because people would wear it going home from the bathhouse, and they realized because it's so lightweight and nice during summertime, it's perfect to wear just kind of casually because it's not silk, so it's just a nice light fabric, and it's like one layer.
And they're very easy to put on too.
Yeah.
As far as dressing goes. They're super popular nowadays because they're also like very accessible, very like they're not as expensive as the more formal silk kimono, and they're easy to dress in, and they're washable, so they're a very user-friendly type of kimono.
They're commonly found during matsuri, which is summer festivals, so like the Obon festival, and there's a lot of regional festivals that happen during the summertime, so you would see a lot of people attending wearing the yukata just because it gets really humid there, as we discussed. So this is a great thing to wear, and you won't have to worry about overheating during the festival. You can just focus on the festivities and eating.
One other garment that was really popular at this time was the hakama pants. Samurai wore hakama a lot because the split leg pants style protected their legs while horseback riding. Later during the Meiji period, when samurai and the daimyo lost power, the hakama would become essentially a school uniform. So now a lot of the time you'll see people wearing hakama to like graduation ceremonies or for like martial arts training and stuff. The Edo period was really the time of the most development for what we now know as the modern kimono. A lot of these styles that evolved during the Edo period are what we still consider wafuku, or traditional Japanese fashion today. In the subsequent eras and stuff like the Meiji period, when you start seeing more like Western trade and stuff in the introduction of Western clothing, you start to see the development of yofuku, which is Japanese, what the Japanese consider like Western dress. And so you start seeing the combination more of like trousers and suits and stuff with like a happi coat or like a haori or something on top of that. You start seeing like a combination of the two. And this was more common for men than it was for women. And then as the eras progressed and stuff, we start seeing more and more cultural integration, and now yofuku is very common in Japan. Two other types of common garments that you'll see nowadays in traditional Japanese fashion are the haori coat and the happi coat. We're currently wearing haori, which have super fun floppy sleeves that we love. And these can be worn on top of your kimono because these sleeves will fit like a kosure sleeve in it. And so they can be layered on top if you want a little extra warmth, or they can also be mixed with your Western dress if you would like to be super fancy. They were first worn by warriors in the Sengoku period as like an extra layer of warmth, so you can get like quilted versions of these, silk ones. They're very heavy duty, nice and cozy. And then during the Edo period, they were commonly paired with hakama and became surprise pants! They're always back. Yep. They became formal wear for like a bunch of different societal classes. And then they also became casual wear for soldiers. And they're just super cute. They're a fun way to integrate traditional Japanese fashion into our everyday wardrobes without the commitment of tying an obi.
Oh god.
Yeah. The other type of common Japanese dress that you'll see nowadays are the happi coats. Like this bad boy.
This Polynesian print one.
Yeah. We have a lot of Hawaiian print happi coats in this house. Happi coats like this are short coats with wide sleeves, and they're traditionally worn by like workers in Japan. You'll see them a lot at festivals nowadays or at sushi restaurants. They say Japanese without these sleeves. These became super popular during the Edo period when servants of a family would wear happi coats with the komon, the mon family crests of the families that they served, and it would identify who they worked for. Happi coats can also be worn by like taiko drummer performers, and these often have no sleeves.
You gotta show off them guns.
Yeah, I mean, if you spend all your time drumming, you're gonna have some pretty impressive arms.
It's also a big workout doing taiko.
Yeah. There's also a variation on happi coats that are worn by chefs.
The hippari.
And they have ties inside the jacket so that you can close it without a belt. All right.
That's it. We're done. Bye.
That's it. We're done. Okay. Thank God. Hopefully this gives you guys a pretty good overview of the different types of traditional Japanese fashion. There's a lot more out there. We haven't covered it all. We couldn't possibly do that in a short video like this. And there are lots of regional variations, but we just wanted to give you guys a good idea of what you might see in modern Japanese traditional fashion.
And hopefully you're able to see how it evolved over time, because people like to assume that the kimono just stayed the same, but it hasn't. It has evolved.
Yeah.
So thank you for sticking around with this madness
and bearing with us through whatever insanity this stream of consciousness was.
Yes. Hopefully you learned a lot. I know I did. I hope you did.
I've learned so many things about us and our ability to focus.
Yes. Exactly.
Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it.
A lot.
Yeah. Bye.
Welcome to QVC.
Welcome to QVC. Floor mopping pants. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from? My thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, with that movement?
Yeah. Fancy arms.
Yeah.
Fancy. Fancy pantsy. Every day is like day. Here comes the pimento. Ta-da.
Okay.
Ready? Okay.
Are you ready, kids? Okay.
Hi. I'll be your guide.
To the other side.
Hello.
Yeah.
Look at this pretty green. I don't know what's wrong with me, okay? Gotta love that smell.
It's pungent
It
and
smells like my great grandma.
forever. Yeah, well, it smells like mine too. I'm sure they put mothballs in with her.
In with her?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay. So this.
Okay. Okay.
We have this totally under control.
No, we don't.
Okay.
We don't have anything under control, and that's
No.
the problem.
It sure is.
You sit on a throne of lies.
Surprise pants, because when in doubt, pants are always a surprise.
Always?
No, actually,
No,
I feel like more often than not, people are probably
It's pretty
wearing pants.
usually clear when people are wearing pants.
Yeah.